At 16, it was but a fleeting glimpse, yet beneath the peach blossoms at White Horse Temple, I quietly placed that youth upon the tip of my heart. 2 years later, an imperial decree crowned me Imperial Consort. The youth, flustered, presented me with a jade amulet for safety, his eyes reddened as he wished only for my life henceforth to be smooth and joyful. Yet on the very day I entered the palace, His Majesty cast me aside, banishing me to the cold palace where my fate grew bleak. Before my death, I begged to see him one last time. He looked at me with disgust. "What are you, anyway? If I hadn't feared you entering the palace would steal Yingniang's favor, do you think I'd have acknowledged you?" Yingniang, that was the Empress's maiden name. So, all this was for her. I died filled with regret. When I opened my eyes, I had returned to the day he gave me that jade pendant. Main text, my rebirth came at an inopportune moment. I'd already been deceived by Yuezhi into the back mountains of Yuchuan Temple. That face, once a fleeting glimpse of beauty in my youth, now filled me with utter revulsion. No longer a heavenly beauty, just a mundane mortal. The moment I faltered, Pei Jingyan's eyes flashed with concern. "Mingzhu, are you unwell?" I sidestepped his outstretched hand, lowering my gaze to conceal the hatred in my eyes. Pei Jingyan possessed breathtaking beauty and a piercing aura, as sharp and unsheathed as a precious blade. Fearing he might detect my true feelings, I leaned heavily against Yuezhi, half my face hidden behind a handkerchief. "Prince Pei, we are strangers. I ask you to observe propriety and keep your distance." Pei Jingyan pressed his lips together, his impatience morphing into a lingering reluctance to speak. He drew a smooth, milky-white jade pendant from his robe. "Mingzhu, this is the amulet of peace Yingniang obtained for you from the White Horse Temple. Our paths were never meant to cross. I only wish you a lifetime of peace and joy." My gaze fell coldly upon his hand. His fingers were long and slender, the pads of his fingers calloused from diligent sword practice. But what he now clutched was not a token of his wish for my safety, but the blade that would shatter my life. After I was banished to the cold palace, my aunt came to see me. She slapped me, her disappointment palpable. "Mingzhu, when did the daughters of the Song family become so worthless? Before entering the palace, you were secretly meeting with Pei Jingyan. Have you no regard for your own life?" The blow stunned me, and tears streamed down my face. She tore the jade brooch from my waistband and flung it viciously at my face. Pei Jingyan is a notorious womanizer. He had many identical jade brooches made to give to any girl who caught his fancy. Only you would dare wear one so brazenly. My face burned with stinging pain, yet my entire being felt as though plunged into an icy hell, my very bones trembling. I clutched at the hem of my aunt's robe, my head thudding hard against the blue bricks. My words of protest mingled with blood and tears, echoing through the empty palace chamber. "Auntie, Mingzhu didn't." Mingzhu met Prince Pei before entering the palace, but she never accepted his jade pendant. This white jade buckle was placed on Mingzhu by Yuezhi. I knew nothing of its origin. My aunt's voice was utterly desolate. "Mingzhu, had I known you were raised so innocent, I should never have consented to your entry into the palace. The Song family has been publicly rebuked by imperial decree. Your father, once the foremost scholar, has lost all face and retired to the countryside. The Song family's reputation for strict observance of propriety and profound understanding of poetry and ethics is utterly ruined." I gathered my hatred, slowly dissolving it into a smile as gentle as spring breeze. In my previous life, I refused to accept Pei Jingyan's jade pendant. I even left abruptly after he confessed his feelings. Yet that very pendant was fastened around my neck on the day I entered the palace. It directly led to my dismissal and caused my upright father deep sorrow. Within mere years, he lay bedridden with illness and passed away in gloom. The Song family, once renowned for its scholarly heritage and impeccable manners, was forever branded with the shame of failing to raise a daughter properly. Their decline was sealed. Under Pei Jingyan's gaze, I extended a finger and gently plucked the jade clasp. "Your thoughtfulness is appreciated, Prince Pei. Perhaps he hadn't expected me to be so compliant that the paragon of virtue, the jewel of the Song family, would yield so easily. A trace of scorn flickered in his eyes, his face beneath the golden fan and jade-inlaid mask radiating haughty disdain. I flashed a sudden smile and turned to leave. Pei Jingyun, you're willing to sacrifice everything for Yingniang, to ensure harmony between the Emperor and Empress, to maintain peace in the harem. I refuse to let you have your way. 3 months later, as the lotus blossoms drifted on the breeze, I entered the palace gates with great pomp and circumstance, my bridal attendants now replaced by Cheongji. In the Phoenix Grace Hall, I shed my elaborate court robes and gazed intently at the mirror, studying my own face, strikingly beautiful and peerless. By looks alone, I already rivaled the Empress, renowned for her unmatched beauty. Add to that the fact that the Empress Dowager is my own aunt. Even if the Emperor and Empress share deep affection, I possess the strength to challenge them. No wonder she fears me. In my previous life, upon entering the palace, I first paid my respects to the Emperor and Empress. As the Emperor gazed at me with astonishment, the Empress casually pointed at the jade pendant at my waist. It does look somewhat familiar. Yuezhi bowed her head behind me. This jade pendant is a cherished possession of the young mistress. She rarely parts with it. The Emperor's face darkened so much it seemed water could drip from it. As he ordered my removal, the magnanimous and gentle Empress closed her eyes, whether from remorse or reluctance, I could not tell. A slow smile curved my lips. My eyes lifted slightly, and my ethereal, divine features gained a hint of subtle allure. Empress, we shall meet again. I wonder if you'll like this reunion gift. That day, Mother seized Yuezhi and presented the signed confession to Father. Father cursed the Pei family's treachery, then publicly flung Yuezhi before the gates of the Jinyuan Marquis' mansion. His declaration, "If my son is Pei Jingyun, I shame my ancestors," plunged the Marquis' household into a whirlwind of scandal. In the serene, grand palace chambers, candles burned brightly. I motioned for Cheongji to help me remove my hairpins. Rest now. But Your Majesty, the Emperor hasn't arrived yet. Tonight, His Majesty will stay with the Empress. He won't be coming here. The Emperor, the Empress, and Pei Jingyun had grown up together since childhood, their bond deep and enduring. Their love was profound, a vow to grow old together. Yet after their marriage, Pei Jingyun's nature abruptly changed. The once proud and unrestrained youth began to indulge in debauchery, eventually becoming notorious for his promiscuity. Thus, amidst the rumors, the tale of the Jinyuan Marquis' heir obsessively pursuing a maid found ready credence. Knowing the truth, the Marquis of Jinyuan could not bear the guilt of framing a palace consort and had to swallow his pride. He took Yuezhi as a concubine for Pei Jingyun and subjected him to such severe punishment that he was bedridden for 3 months. The Pei Jingyun of today was no longer the dashing playboy who had captivated the capital. His reputation ruined, no respectable young lady would marry him. His fall had been precipitated by his involvement with Her Majesty the Empress. Therefore, whether to vent her anger for him or to save my own face, she would trip up His Majesty tonight, delivering a warning shot across my bow. Sure enough, palace attendants entered to announce the imperial decree. The attendants in the Phoenix Grace Hall exchanged anxious glances, yet I slept soundly through the night, cradled in Cheongji's worried embrace. When I went to the Jiaofeng Palace to pay my respects, the Emperor was there too. He leaned lazily beside Her Majesty the Empress, his posture intimate. I bowed deeply, my etiquette flawless and impeccable. Yet the Empress clearly refused to grant me any courtesy. She kept her eyes lowered, silent, as if her gaze were fixed on her teacup. Within the span of a cup of tea, whispers began to stir among the surrounding consorts. Eyes, some disdainful, some curious, turned toward me. Yet I remained respectful, my expression serene. The Empress could not overstep, so she merely ordered me to rise. I stumbled slightly but quickly regained my balance. Lifting my head in the morning light, I slowly smiled at the Emperor and Empress. This humble servant thanks Your Majesty and the Empress. The palace ladies who caught sight of my face gasped. The Empress set down her cup without a flicker of emotion. The young emperor instantly sat up straight. Leaning forward slightly, his eyes shone with dazzling astonishment. Indeed. The pearl of the Song family. As His Majesty followed me out, the Empress's face darkened. After leaving the Jiaofeng Palace, I tugged at the Emperor's sleeve and said slyly, "Actually, cousin, you didn't need to accompany me to pay respects to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Mingzhu won't tattle." The Emperor flushed with the awkwardness of being called out. Clearing his throat, he explained for the Empress, Yingniang was unwell last night. It was rather inconvenient for the noble consort. I readily accepted his excuse, slipping my fingers into his wide sleeve to gently clasp his hand. He paused, gazing distantly at the eaves of Shohua Palace, never pulling away. After chatting with the Empress Dowager for a while in Shohua Palace, the Emperor saw I truly had no intention of tattling and finally left with peace of mind. "She's surprisingly level-headed, not as foolish as your father claimed," my aunt remarked. Seeing the faint worry in her eyes, I couldn't hold back the tears. In my past life, confined to the cold palace, I survived entirely through my aunt's support. But after our maternal family's downfall, my aunt resented Pei Jingyun and the Empress for framing me. She sought justice for me, yet this gradually strained her relationship with the Emperor. Ultimately, the Empress used the pretext of praying for the late Emperor's soul to send her to the Imperial Temple of Enlightenment. She passed away shortly thereafter. My aunt paused. "There's no need to weep. I understand your grievances. Among the 4 daughters of the Song family, your 3 elder sisters were renowned throughout the capital for their learning. Only you stood out for your beauty. When the Emperor sought a Song maiden for the palace, Yingniang likely deemed you the easiest to manage, and thus chose you. Mingzhu, you are beautiful and possess an innocent, sweet nature. In this imperial harem, these traits can be both strengths and weaknesses. You need not worry. The Song family does not need you to bring honor to our clan. As long as you avoid missteps, your aunt will protect you." She patted my hand meaningfully. The Empress has always been proud and self-assured. "Mingyue, it is enough for you to simply be yourself." For 3 consecutive nights, His Majesty remained in the Empress's Jiaofeng Palace. The entire palace watched my humiliation unfold, waiting to see if the Empress Dowager would intervene to reprimand the Empress. But they were disappointed. Both the Empress Dowager and I carried on as if nothing had happened. I followed palace protocol daily, paying my respects to the Empress with neither arrogance nor haste, and finding genuine joy in reciting sutras with the Empress Dowager. It was His Majesty who sought out the Empress Dowager with some awkwardness to explain, "Yingniang has been suffering from a cold these past few days." It was not my intention to neglect the noble consort. The Empress Dowager dismissed it. Harmony between Emperor and Empress is a blessing for the nation. The Empress has always understood the greater picture. Since she is unwell, the Emperor ought to stay by her side and not cause the Duke of Dinghua any worry. Mingzhu is young and innocent, she won't hold any of this against us. Not long after leaving Shohua Palace, the Emperor came to Maifengyi Hall. He brought only a young eunuch, did not have the palace attendants announce his arrival, and quietly hid under the hibiscus tree not far from me. At that moment, my long hair was disheveled. Dressed in a pale yellow silk robe, I was enthusiastically catching plump carp in the backyard pond with Qiongji. We finally netted one. Before I could even feel pleased, the carp leaped with the force of a dragon gate, splashing me violently and soaking my thin robe. I looked at Qiongji, utterly speechless. Her gaze swept past me as she curtsied to the approaching Emperor. "This servant greets your Majesty." The Emperor didn't acknowledge her, instead grabbing me by the arm. His intense gaze felt like a deep, dark whirlpool. "Consort, I arrived too late. Once it happened once, it would happen countless times." The Emperor had tasted the sweetness and, within half a year, I had become the most prominent figure in the harem. I heard the Empress had argued with him several times. The Emperor had humbled himself to appease her on multiple occasions, yet her anger remained unabated. The most severe incident occurred when, after a fierce quarrel, the emperor stormed out of the Jiafeng palace in a rage, while the empress threw precious jewels and porcelain across the floor. When he arrived at the Phoenix Hall, his face was etched with exhaustion. I lit a calming incense, coaxed him to drink a bowl of sweet soup with soft words, and massaged his shoulders and neck without disturbing him. The emperor frowned deeply. After a long while, he asked me, "How did the empress become like this? She was always so dignified and well-mannered. Lately, her temper has been so volatile." I knew he wasn't seeking answers from me. I simply nestled softly against him. Sure enough, he sighed deeply. "Mingzhu, this Hall of Phoenix Grace is still the most comforting place. Summer nights were long and scorching, and I became a lotus swaying in the storm, blooming ever more radiantly amidst the churning waters." When the emperor departed, his steps were hurried, his usually dignified and gentle face tinged with a hint of guilt. I peeked out from behind him. "Cousin, you looked especially dashing today." The emperor stumbled, finally turning back with a resigned smile. "Mingzhu, you." After he departed, I stepped barefoot onto the floor and expressionlessly snapped the incense stick. In the season when winter plum blossoms rivaled snow, Her Majesty the Empress carried a food box to His Majesty's study. They spent the entire afternoon together, emerging later laughing and chatting. That very night, His Majesty remained in the Jiafeng Palace. The silver fox fur coat meant for my chambers now draped over Her Majesty's shoulders. When I went to Jiafeng Palace to pay my respects, the Empress held the fur coat close, making me kneel for a long time. She had changed greatly since I first met her. She remained a radiant and majestic peony, yet now she was veiled in a gray dust, even the light in her eyes dimmed considerably. She and His Majesty had been betrothed in youth, growing up together through mutual support. Their bond was undeniably deep, their youthful vows and sincerity imbued with profound affection. Yet youth fades swiftly. When pure emotion becomes entangled with interests and rivalries, scheming inevitably takes root. 6 years had passed since the imperial wedding, yet no heir had been born to the palace. Despite His Majesty's reassurances, the Empress was thrown into disarray by the overwhelming favor I showered upon her. After reconciling with the Emperor, she began experimenting with various secret recipes for conception. Once, while playing chess with my aunt, I asked her obliquely, "Is it unwillingness or inability?" My aunt's move captured half my pieces. Unlike my own frustration at losing, her gaze remained serene. Deep affection is real. So are interests. Love blinds, yet the hatred born of love can shatter one's composure, even drive them to desperate gambles. Where you surpass the Empress is that you do not love the Emperor. Her sharp gaze swept over my fingers. "Mingzhu, would you agree?" I suddenly released the piece I'd been clutching, my heart sinking slowly. Yes. The clashes between the Emperor and Empress grew more frequent. Her Majesty's temper flared ever more fiercely. Beyond her arguments with His Majesty, her rage spilled onto the innocent. Many favored concubines were punished for her perceived faults, lightly, through copying sutras, severely, through kneeling. The entire harem was filled with discontent. As for my Phoenix Grace Hall, His Majesty hadn't visited in ages. Chungji would often call to me when I stood lost in thought by the window, "Your Highness, stop waiting. The Empress has forbidden His Majesty from seeking you out." After much quarreling, he has agreed. Day after day I waited, and day after day Chungji repeated her words. Finally, on the day the lotus blossoms drifted their fragrance, she fell silent. She bowed low before the Emperor standing in the sunset, then swiftly withdrew. Tears welling in my eyes, I rushed forward. The young Emperor, weary yet tender, gently patted my back. My tears turned to laughter as I took his hand and led him into the inner chambers. I asked him neither why he had stayed away so long nor voiced any complaint. I simply clung to him softly, lighting a calming incense as usual, bringing out the sweet soup kept warm, and gently loosening his long hair, massaging it stroke by stroke. His Majesty stared at me for a long moment, pulling my hand close to examine me, his eyes softening. He sighed contentedly, drawing me into his embrace. Mingzhu. It was the first time the emperor had spent the night in the Phoenix Grace Hall. After seeing his majesty off, her majesty the empress rushed over, sword in hand, her aura fierce. Where is Zhao Yu? Make him come out. The sword's glint, like autumn water, pointed toward my delicate neck. Court attendants knelt everywhere, and Qiongji frantically kowtowed. I answered softly, Your Majesty, the emperor has gone to court. The empress's expression shifted, a sneer emerging. He deceived me again. He swore he'd never return to the Phoenix Hall. Her face grew colder, her elegant brows knitting into murderous blades. With one sweep of her arm, my small bed, where I usually rested, was shattered into pieces. He swore his love was mine alone, yet the harem brims with consorts. He vowed to favor none but you, yet took your bed the moment you entered the palace. Later, he grew even more brazen, sleeping with every woman in the harem. Zhao Yu! Zhao Yu! Which of your words were ever true? Terrified, I cowered to one side, tears welling in my eyes, threatening to spill. The empress, displeased with my reaction, pressed the blade against me once more. Song Mingzhu, I thought you were simple-minded, but I underestimated you. You entangled Brother Yin with a lowly maid, and you bewitched Zhao Yu, luring him to the Phoenix Hall day in and day out. Her sword slowly traced my cheek. I should destroy this bewitching face of yours. Yingniang! The hurried footsteps of palace attendants echoed outside the hall. His Majesty's voice boomed from beyond the threshold. The Empress and I turned simultaneously, watching the flash of bright yellow robes dart across the stone path, about to cross the palace gate. Cousin. I gathered my skirt, ready to rush out. Her Majesty's expression hardened. The sword pointed at my face instinctively lowered, only to swiftly slice a wound across my arm. Blood gushed instantly. I gasped, my legs buckling beneath me. Her Majesty's expression flickered. Just as she reached to help me up, the Emperor, rushing over, shoved her aside. He anxiously gathered me into his arms, carefully examining my wound while calling for the Imperial physician. Finally, he turned to her with utter disappointment, Yingniang, look at yourself. Do you still resemble a queen? The Empress's eyes glowed crimson. She rubbed her arm, reddened where the Emperor had pushed her, in disbelief. Zhao Yu, you pushed me? You pushed me for her? The Emperor refused to meet her gaze, his voice cold. Escort the Empress back to the palace. Tears streamed down the Empress's face. She wiped them away while laughing. Fine. 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 Zhao Yu, I'll leave. I'll leave. With that, she flung her sword aside and ran off, sobbing. The sword landed, piercing the Emperor's robes. Palace attendants scrambled to tidy up. The Emperor's fingers clenched until they turned white. His gaze followed the Empress's retreating figure, filled with worry. I grabbed his sleeve, cold sweat trickling down my pale cheeks. Cousin, rest assured. I won't tell Auntie about today's events, and I'll ensure the palace attendants keep their mouths shut. Even though His Majesty and I had warned the attendants, secrets don't last long in the palace. Auntie eventually learned of the Empress's sword-wielding rampage in the Phoenix Hall and how she had wounded me. The unjustly punished consort seized the opportunity to weep her way into Shohua Palace. For the first time, the Empress Dowager had lost her temper with the Empress before His Majesty. Your Majesty, I know how deeply you love and cherish the Empress. You have always done everything in your power to love and protect her. You have even neglected the other consorts and shielded her from the harsh criticism of her childlessness, all to spare her sorrow. But, Your Majesty, it has been 6 years. You are 24 this year, yet you have no heir. You must start considering the imperial lineage and your own future. Though we are not blood mother and son, you have lived by my side since you were 6. We have weathered storms together to reach this day, you know well how arduous it has been. Precisely because you remain childless, many lurk in the shadows, harboring ill intentions. All these years, you have done right by her, Yingniang, and by him, the Duke of Dinghua. If they still harbor resentment, then they are the ones failing to honor the Emperor's devoted protection. Your Majesty, it is fortunate the Empress wounded Mingzhu. Had it been another consort, how would you have accounted for it to their fathers and brothers? His Majesty remained silent for a long while before finally issuing an edict to withdraw the contraceptive potions from all palaces. While I lay in a dazed slumber, he once again came quietly to the Phoenix Grace Hall. He summoned palace attendants to inquire about the events of that day, focusing particularly on what words the Empress had spoken to me, what expression I had worn, and how I had responded. My responses showed no irregularities, and His Majesty visibly relaxed. Another palace attendant added, before stabbing the noble consort, Her Majesty the Empress blamed the noble consort for harming her brother, Yun. His Majesty's expression grew colder. Brother Yun? Pei Jingyun? He truly is a persistent ghost. He summoned Qiongji. Did Mingzhu know Pei Jingyun? Qiongji pondered for a moment. You mean the young master of the Zhenyuan Marquis' household, who took a Song family maid as his concubine? After the Emperor ascertained the details, his expression betrayed no emotion. He left without another word. As Qiongji tucked the quilt around me, she seemed unsettled. I squeezed her hand. This matter remains a hidden threat. Even though father had handled it properly, meddlesome individuals, stirred up by those with ulterior motives, were still grasping at straws. They said that someone as talented and arrogant as Pei Jingyun, as brilliant and peerless as he was, would never set his sights on a mere concubine who could only be called pretty. Surely there was someone else with whom he was secretly involved. When I heard this, I was inside the palace hall, peeling lotus seeds, picking out the bitter lotus hearts, the lotus seeds bursting with fragrance in my mouth. The remaining seeds were simmered into a sweet broth, perfect for cooling the irritable emperor's heart fire. Recently, he had been locked in a bitter dispute with the Empress over the matter of the contraceptive soup. Yingniang truly was a remarkable woman. Merely a slight dip in her fortunes, and Pei Jingyun had rushed to clear obstacles from her path, heedless even of his own future. But this time, his hopes were likely to be dashed. No sooner had the rumors surfaced than father dragged the Marquis of Zhenyuan into the imperial court. Before all the civil and military officials, he angrily denounced the Marquis for failing to discipline his son properly, leading to the young nobleman's outrageous behavior. Father listed dozens of charges against the Marquis and his son. Finally, declaring he could not serve alongside the Marquis in the same court, he resigned in indignation. This left the indifferent officials utterly shocked and sent the already anxious Marquis into a complete panic. Father flung his sleeves and shot the Marquis a sidelong glance. I hear Prince Pei possesses a further volume detailing his conquests, meticulously recording when and where he bestowed jade hairpins upon which ladies and wives, all to boast of his exploits. The officials, who had been silent moments before, froze in shock. Then, one after another, they prostrated themselves, demanding severe punishment for Prince Pei and the Zhenyuan Marquis' household. The matter was settled. Under the Marquis' ashen and defeated expression, my father strode away triumphantly. His ambition lay in teaching and nurturing minds. His heart was set on Shui Yun, awaiting only his resignation to return to Lin City as headmaster of Yuelu Academy. The Marquis of Zhenyuan, too, was a man of decisive action. Before the emperor issued punishment against the Marquis' household, he petitioned to have his second son, Pei Huifeng, born to his second wife, designated as crown prince. The emperor granted his request. As a child, Pei Jingyun often wallowed in self-pity, resentful that his father had remarried after his mother's death. It was Yingniang who comforted him, cared for him, and treated him like a younger brother. She had always been the son he chased. Yet in his eyes, only his own son existed. To keep his son forever shining bright, he could extinguish other lights without hesitation. How despicable! He was utterly unworthy of being cherished. News of Pei Jingyun reached them again when spring arrived once more. He was dead. He died in the army, killed in a senseless altercation with a soldier. It all started because the soldier had privately told a lewd joke that vaguely mentioned the Empress. Enraged for his beloved, he stabbed the soldier. Then, those who disliked him swarmed and beat him. When the crowd dispersed, he remained forever in that spring. The Marquis of Yingniang regretted it deeply. He and his first wife had shared a profound bond, and Pei Jingyun had been his most cherished child. Consumed by grief, he stormed the Duke of Dinggua's residence in a fit of rage. After returning, he lost all vigor, rarely stepping outside his door. Yet Pei Jingyun's death stirred no ripples in the capital. For at that time, his son, Her Majesty the Empress, had no time to spare for his life or death. Ever since the palaces ceased administering pregnancy-preventing concoctions, good news from the harem followed one after another. No matter how much Her Majesty the Empress protested and argued, among the consorts great and small, 8 were now carrying children. Upon learning this news, Her Majesty the Empress sat motionless in the Jiafeng Palace all night. The next day, her gaze was colder and more intense than ever before. She did not spare a single glance at the emperor, who had stood with her at the gates of the Jiafeng Palace all night. Beneath her elaborate finery, her features were strikingly vivid, and her cold, elegant demeanor as she moved and sat was breathtakingly beautiful. Her sun-like beauty scorched the eyes of the other consorts while firmly capturing the emperor's gaze. For over 10 days, he rushed to the Jiafeng Palace the moment court adjourned, unable to wait. The Empress did not receive him. "Your Majesty, the Empress may be regaining favor." Qiongji placed the cut flowers into a vase, her face clouded with worry. I merely smiled without speaking. Regain favor? The Empress had never truly fallen out of favor. The young emperor, deeply sentimental and nostalgic, had largely neglected her out of necessity, the desperate need for an heir. Alas, the Empress, blinded by love, failed to see this. She believed His Majesty had long since changed his heart, casting aside their vows of old. Her trust in him was shattered. I calmly tossed fish food into the pond, drawing a swarm of carp that rolled their white bellies as they scrambled for the morsels. Her Majesty will not only regain favor, she will conceive. Qiongji gasped softly. I glanced back with a faint smile. What is there to fear? The ones who should worry now are the consorts who are already pregnant. While playing chess with my aunt, she too watched me intently. You seem quite unhurried, yet every palace is scrambling to bear the crown prince. The Empress already carries the dragon's child. To scheme for the crown prince now, is she not courting death? Months prior, when His Majesty once again hesitated at the gates of Jiafeng Palace, the Empress finally opened them. The usually stern Empress softened her demeanor, wiping away tears as she reminisced with His Majesty about their past, weeping so deeply that His Majesty too shed endless tears. Yingniang was not merely Pei Jingyun's son, she was also the vermilion birthmark His Majesty had carved upon his heart, never to fade. Her powerful return now overshadowed all others in the harem. The Emperor, aside from occasionally visiting my Phoenix Hall, mostly remained in the Jiafeng Palace with the Empress. I feared you were too young and impatient, but you've proven quite calculating. My chess skills had greatly improved, allowing me to hold my own against my aunt for a few more moments. A smile touched her lips. Pearl seems much more at ease this year, unlike previous years when you were always so tense, weighed down by excessive worry. Isn't this simply Pearl rejoicing at Pei Jingyun getting his just desserts? My aunt fell silent for a moment. Pei Jingyun is insignificant. The one who truly orchestrated this is still very much alive. Pearl, you must not act rashly. My jade-like fingers flicked a chess piece, unconcerned. Since she can conceive, the day she breaks with His Majesty can't be far off. Why should I rush? My hand paused mid-move. I lifted my head to meet my aunt's grave gaze. The whole family says you're foolish. Mingzhu, I think you're far too clever. When His Majesty arrived at Fengyi Hall, I was copying texts. Copied sheets were scattered everywhere within the hall. The moment I saw him, my eyes lit up, and I immediately dropped my brush and paper. Cousin, save me! His Majesty smiled as he tickled my nose. What did Mingzhu do to offend the Empress Dowager? To be punished with copying texts. Naturally, I couldn't tell him the real reason. Instead, I pouted in a sweet voice, it's all because Auntie thinks I'm too young and impulsive. She's afraid I'll offend the pregnant ladies in the other palaces if I go out, so she's confined me here to copy texts. I wrapped my arms around him and pleaded softly, Cousin, could you please intercede with Auntie for me? Ever since the Empress banned the daily court greetings, I only visit Shohua Palace once a day. The rest of the time I'm in Fengyi Hall, there's absolutely no need for me to copy texts. His Majesty merely smiled without reply. My water-green scarf wrapped around his arm, my slender white fingers lightly tapping his chest. My moist, yearning eyes reflected only his figure. The gloom gathered between his brows melted away, his gaze sparkling like the starry sky. Mingzhu, you truly are a little devil who wears me out. His Majesty lowered his eyes and asked me, Mingzhu, do you want a child? I looked back at him with complete honesty. Mingzhu only wants to be with my cousin. I don't want a child. Seeing I wasn't dismissing him, His Majesty tightened his grip on my hand. Every woman in the harem desires a son to secure her position, even the Empress cannot escape this custom. Only Mingzhu is different. For the first time, I addressed him as Your Majesty. Your Majesty is already husband to many, and shall one day be father to many more. I only wish that within Fengyi Palace, Your Majesty remains merely Mingzhu's cousin. Ever since Her Majesty the Empress became pregnant, she has strongly disliked the Emperor visiting the Jiaofeng Palace. Each time he leaves the Jiaofeng Palace, his mood darkens. As the Empress's belly grows larger, the gloom between his brows deepens layer by layer, easing only slightly when he comes to the Fengyi Palace. The Empress and I grew up together. For her sake, I neglected the harem and remained childless for 6 years. Even if she bears no children, she remains my Empress and will be Empress Dowager. I've even considered adopting another concubine's child for her to raise. Why won't she understand my heartfelt intentions? Is biological lineage truly so crucial? Our own mother and I are not blood-related, yet we share the same bond of maternal devotion and filial piety. Recalling my aunt's fate in my previous life, I couldn't help but sneer. Of course it's different. If they were truly mother and son, how could he have allowed the Empress to send my aunt to the Imperial Temple of Enlightenment, then so easily destroy her maternal family? Yet I merely leaned quietly against his back, saying nothing. And he would always end by stroking my long hair and saying, Mingzhu, you are the best. Day after day, he repeated it over and over. Gradually, this phrase became etched into his mind, making him believe it was true. The Empress miscarried. At 5 months pregnant, she suddenly bled without warning, a fully formed male infant. This news crashed like a boulder into calm waters, sending ripples through the entire harem. Suddenly, everyone felt their position was in jeopardy. After becoming pregnant, the Empress had her own people handle all her food, clothing, and daily needs. She forbade the other consorts from their daily court calls and rarely left the Jiaofeng Palace. Yet despite such extreme caution, the child she had worked so hard to conceive was still lost. When the news reached him, the Emperor was in the Phoenix Hall. He sat there for a long time, his cold, stern face betraying no emotion. He methodically instructed the palace attendants to handle the matter, as if he had anticipated this outcome. As he left, his shadow stretched long and dark behind him, its somber hue blending into his imperial robes, making his complexion appear unnaturally gloomy. Mingzhu, I fear I shall not be able to visit you for a long time. Take good care of yourself. If you need anything, seek out the Empress Dowager. I stood silently behind him. We both knew the imperial harem would be thrown into turmoil. The Empress would certainly use this as an opportunity to unleash a storm. Even though the imperial physician stated the Empress's miscarriage was due to fetal underdevelopment, she still directed her accusations toward the other pregnant consorts. Both consort De, nearing full term, and the ever-dutiful consort Han, met their ends, both mother and child, under the Empress's brutal interrogation. Yet she remained unsatisfied. Like a hellfire returned from the underworld, she burned with a desire to consume every soul that displeased her. No one anticipated the Empress would descend into such madness. Consort song, Lady Li, Lady Wang, Lady Lin, pregnant concubines were summoned one after another to the spice chamber. Their wails of grief echoed day and night, until each was carried out lifeless. A wave of terror swept through the entire harem. Terrified Consort Zhou and Lady Xiao were shielded by the Empress Dowager and moved to the Palace of Longevity. The Emperor, who had remained silent, finally spoke, "Empress, enough. Your constitution was never suited for bearing children. The failure to produce an heir is not the fault of others. Cease harming the innocent." Innocent? Zhao Yu, they are all innocent, while I alone deserve my fate, is that it? I truly regret it. Zhao Yu, I truly regret it. My brother Yun once said that as an emperor, you could never favor just one woman. Yet I believed you. How could I have believed you? At that moment, the emperor's gaze was utterly cold, his calmness bordering on cruelty. Yingniang, your brother Yun is dead. He died for you. The Empress collapsed to the ground. The emperor swept his sleeves and left the Jiaofeng Palace, subsequently confining the Empress to her quarters. Court officials roared demands to depose her in the assembly hall. The nostalgic emperor stood silently before the palace gates, saying nothing. He was still protecting her. Such profound devotion. Yet the harem felt only a chill in their bones. The usually docile consort Zhou wept in Shouhua Palace. Then what are we? We? Naturally, we are the grindstone for their loyal love. The crimes of plotting against the imperial heir and harming palace consorts were simply too grave. The Marquis of Jinyuan wailed in the court, since his son Jingyun deserved his fate in the underworld, why should the Empress be spared? He knelt before the palace gates for 3 days without food or water, demanding only justice. The Emperor and the Duke of Dingwa were furious at his recklessness, yet even with the minister's support, they found themselves powerless. Just then, a new play suddenly took the world by storm, both in the court and the streets. Titled Peach Blossom, it depicted a wealthy household where the master, frustrated by his primary wife's childlessness, sought to take the niece of his elderly mother-in-law as a prized concubine. The master's wife had a childhood sweetheart, a young neighbor. Fearing his beloved would lose favor once the concubine arrived, he schemed to seduce the concubine's personal maid, plotting to frame her for adultery using a scented pouch. The fair-faced, handsome young man sang his heartfelt confessions to his beloved, vowing to brave boiling water and fire, to sacrifice his very life, all for a single smile from her. Just as I was engrossed in the play, the emperor arrived at Shouhua Palace. Consort Zhou and Beauty Xiao bowed with ashen faces, while the Empress Dowager watched the stage with solemn eyes. Tears welled in mine as I turned away. The young emperor, witnessing the noble concubine's tragic death on stage, lost all color. He strode over and embraced me. Mingzhu. Mingzhu, fear not. I believe you. I will never let anyone harm you. He added, not even the Empress. A single act of the play laid bare the love, hatred, passion, and folly of two devoted lovers. Those who failed to grasp its deeper meaning saw only the cycle of joy and sorrow, union and separation. But those who understood were left tossing and turning, unable to sit or stand still. The first to bear the brunt of this was the Duke of Dingwa. Soon after, he submitted a memorial requesting the Empress's dethronement. Dethroned, she remained in the Jiaofeng Palace, her food, clothing, and expenses unchanged. Yet the emperor seldom visited her anymore. She resembled a withered flower branch, parched land deprived of water, devoid of any trace of vitality. Like a wandering spirit, she drifted through the palace daily, most often frequenting the Fengyi Hall. Her eyes were like bottomless pools, always gazing at me with an unnerving depth. Sometimes, when I turned around without warning, I would startle at her presence. Cheongji was deeply frightened by her and cautiously suggested to me, "Your Highness, perhaps we should ask His Majesty for more guards." "I can't shake the feeling the Empress might harm you." I refused. The sun had barely begun its descent when one of the earrings the Emperor had bestowed vanished. I hurriedly dismissed the palace attendants and ordered Cheongji to search, instructing her to focus on the carp pond. I went to the wind-listening pavilion near the Phoenix Grace Hall to wait for her. The pavilion was small, with gauze curtains hanging among the vines and blossoms, allowing only shadowy glimpses of those inside. A breeze must have risen, for the branches trembled violently. I lowered my head. "Cheongji, I've been in the palace for 3 years now, constantly favored, yet I've never conceived. I've heard the imperial family possesses a potion that renders one barren for life with just one dose. Even if conception occurs by chance, the fetus would perish midway." I hesitated, then continued, "His Majesty fears his aunt and favors me only out of necessity. Do you think he might have laced the tonic he bestows with that potion? Cheongji, should I seek out a renowned physician outside the palace?" When Cheongji returned, I was lost in thought, gazing beyond the pavilion. Through layers of sheer gauze, the swaying flower branches resembled predatory beasts, poised to strike. Anxious concern flashed across her face, easing only when she saw I was unharmed. "Your servant saw the deposed Empress hastily pass this way earlier. I feared something had befallen you, Your Highness. Perhaps you mistook her." "I haven't seen her today." I sighed softly. "Cheongji, the wind is rising. Return to your duties." When His Majesty next visited the Phoenix Grace Hall, a palace attendant from Shohua Palace arrived bearing joyous news. Consort Zhou had given birth to the crown prince. I clasped his hand, genuinely overjoyed. Observing my expression, the Emperor finally felt reassured. "Mingzhu, you truly are the best." I merely gave a slight nod, my eyes bright as I congratulated him. His Majesty pulled me close, his eyes overflowing with deep affection. "Mingzhu, will you be my Empress?" Bitterness welled in my heart, yet tears fell from my eyes. I simply did not respond. Amidst the raging storm, we surrendered to a reckless, intoxicating madness. As the deep night passed, he kissed my eyes in the dawn light. "Mingzhu, I love you." My eyelids fluttered, but I did not open my eyes. I saw Yingniang again at dusk. She passed by me calmly, her eyelids half lowered. "Song Mingzhu, I truly despise you." With that, she walked on slowly, never looking back. Yet behind her, I broke out in a cold sweat, my face pale as I collapsed into Cheongji's arms. The Yingniang of now overlapped with her past life form, instantly dredging up the nightmare buried deep within my heart. I had shared these dreams with my father, mother, and elder sister. But when it came to the cause of death, I'd always brushed it off with a casual remark, "I merely died in the cold palace." But that wasn't it. My death wasn't that simple. In her past life, Yingniang had ultimately learned the truth about the contraceptive potion from Pei Jingyan. Though it was a decision made jointly by the Emperor and his aunt, she alone harbored a murderous hatred toward her aunt. The Emperor, unwilling to sever ties with her, tacitly approved her decision to send the aunt to the Imperial Temple of Enlightenment. Yet after the aunt's death, he was consumed by regret. As atonement, he resolved to release me from the cold palace. But it was precisely this decision that ultimately sealed my tragic fate. It was another dusk when Yingniang arrived at the cold palace, her face serene, accompanied by several eunuchs. The jewel of the Song family was mired in the mire. The agony was unbearable. It was a grief and torment too profound for words. My wails and screams echoed throughout the entire harem, only to fade away just before dawn. Yet the Emperor who had vowed to make amends for his aunt, the Emperor who promised me a peaceful remainder of my life, never once appeared. He had abandoned his Empress. He was a complete and utter fraud. My aunt never knew I hated the Emperor. She thought I only hated Pei Jingyan, hated Yingniang. But the one I truly despised to my very core was Zhao Yu. It was he who, without a shred of regard for my aunt's nurturing kindness and unwavering support, brought about her death, my death, and the ruin of the Song family. Everyone knew I was wronged. Pei Jingyun knew it. Xia Yingniang knew it. Even Zhao Yu, who appeared enraged, was privy to the truth. Yet none of them cared. I was merely the test stone for the Emperor and Empress's steadfast love. No one would care about my fate. My consciousness sank into a hazy dreamscape, trapped within the torment of past suffering. I returned to the moment of my death. Long since numb, I stared blankly at the faint fish-belly white creeping across the horizon. Before the gates of the cold palace, I saw a corner of a yellow robe and cried out in a curse, "Zhao Yu." I thought I heard his reply, his voice tender yet urgent in my ear, "Your cousin is here, Mingzhu. Do not fear. I am here." No. I don't want him here. I don't want him. But no one could hear my heart's cry. He was still beside me, calling out to Qiongji, "What did the deposed Empress do to Mingzhu? Why won't she wake?" He shouted at the palace attendants, "Why haven't the imperial physicians arrived? Go summon them." He was so noisy. I didn't like him at all. At some point, I suddenly broke free from my body's constraints and began to float gently upward. My soul remained in the shattered state it had been in when I met a tragic end in my previous life. I drifted silently through the Phoenix Grace Hall, watching the imperial physicians, helpless in the face of my unconsciousness, kneel in a row before the Emperor's furious gaze. I also saw the deeply devoted Emperor staying awake all night by my side. He tended to me clumsily yet meticulously, his eyes filled with unmasked sorrow. My aunt arrived too. She tucked the quilt around me. "Mingzhu, your father said you had a dream before entering the palace. So that play wasn't the work of the Marquis of Zhenyuan, was it? In your dream, did your aunt still fail to protect you in the end?" She murmured to herself, "Even I cannot meet a peaceful end?" Shortly after she left, a young imperial physician finally diagnosed the cause of my unconsciousness. Poisoned? His Majesty's expression was impossible to read as he lowered his gaze at the physician. What poison? A rare toxin from the southern frontier, dream shaker. The physician leaned closer. Your Imperial Majesty, the consort has been poisoned for over a month. It had been over a month since the Empress was deposed, and the Duke of Dinghua had once commanded the southern frontier. Furious, His Majesty coldly laughed and smashed his teacup. "Xia Yingniang, it's you again." As he rose, I drifted involuntarily behind him. He stormed off to the Jiaofeng Palace. Xia Yingniang, dressed in the full regalia of a first-rank empress, sat composedly at her dressing table, applying makeup. I saw a momentary flicker of confusion cross His Majesty's eyes, but it vanished instantly, replaced by icy resolve. "Xia Yingniang, did you poison Mingzhu?" She slowly lowered her comb and met his gaze in the mirror. "Zhao Yu, how did we come to this?" "Xia Yingniang, I have no desire to discuss this now. Give me the antidote, and I will forgive you for everything." She resumed combing her long hair. "Zhao Yu, you truly are both deeply affectionate and utterly heartless. Is Song Mingzhu now the one who holds your heart?" The Emperor could no longer contain his anger. "Xia Yingniang, Mingzhu has always held you in the highest regard. Yet you have harmed her time and again. How could you be so viciously cruel?" Xia Yingniang slammed her comb down. "Wicked? Zhao Yu, you didn't speak this way before. You once praised me as a phoenix fiery in temper and fiercely avenging evil. Now that you've grown tired of me, suddenly I'm wicked? Yingniang, take it out on me. Mingzhu is innocent." "Innocent?" "Zhao Yu, the concubines who died by my hand, they were innocent too. Why didn't you call me vicious then?" Xia Yingniang rose to her feet. The 9 phoenixes holding Pearl's hairpin dangled lightly from her bun. She approached the Emperor step by step, whispering into his ear. "Zhao Yu, I never touched the innocent. But you, who deceived me into drinking the contraceptive potion on our wedding night, can you truly be called innocent? The emperor paled, his face frozen in disbelief, as if he never imagined she knew the truth. Yingniang suddenly drew a dagger from her sleeve. Before he could react, she plunged it into his abdomen, her expression wild with madness. Zhao Yu, you killed our child. The instant the emperor was struck, countless fine silver threads sprouted from every bone and limb, swiftly pulling me toward the Phoenix Hall. My shattered soul was gradually restored to its present form by the silver threads, then plunged heavily back into my unconscious body. When news of the emperor's assassination reached the Phoenix Hall, I opened my eyes. While the emperor lay unconscious, the imperial physicians diagnosed him as poisoned. By then, Yingniang had already been imprisoned. The Duke of Dinggua's estate was stripped of its title, and his entire family was banished to a harsh, frigid land. I carried wine to see Yingniang one last time. I will never be Zhao Yu's empress, nor will I be Empress Dowager. Yingniang, even if you are deposed, you remain his one and only empress. Yingniang stiffened her back and downed the wine I poured for her in one gulp, her eyes reddening. I was always his empress. Song Mingzhu, if not for you, I would have remained his empress forever. I merely smiled at her. No. Once you learn the truth about the contraceptive potion, you will only torment each other. Sometimes, love alone is not enough, especially when the two parties stand on fundamentally unequal footing. These two were destined to transform from a perfect match into bitter enemies. Yingniang, I once saw you in the inner chambers. Tears welled in my eyes as my thoughts drifted back to a distant past. Yingniang glanced at me in confusion. I continued, that year, you appeared at the White Horse Temple dressed in pale blue men's robes, looking like an exceptionally handsome young man. Amidst the swirling peach blossom rain before the temple, you caught a girl who had fallen from a peach tree. In that moment, you were like her light. Yet later, it was this very light that dragged her into a hell without daylight. Yingniang stared at me in a daze, a look of realization dawning in her eyes. I asked her, how did Yingniang, once passionate and fiery, yearning to slay enemies at the frontier, become this shadow of herself? I received no answer. Perhaps even she couldn't articulate why. I tucked away my flask and left, glancing back at her. You needn't look like you're waiting for poison to take effect. There's no poison in the wine. She looked up in surprise, unable to restrain herself. Song Mingzhu, why? My feet didn't stop moving. Zhao Yu loves you most now. Why did you do this? Her voice followed me calmly from behind. The dagger I used to wound Zhao Yu wasn't poisoned. I went to see my aunt. Before she could speak, I bowed low. This time, I recounted everything that had happened in my past life to my aunt, including my death. Overcome with grief, she held me, unable to speak, only choking out my name, Mingzhu. Mingzhu. Later, she asked me, could you truly bear to abandon the emperor? Regardless of the past, his feelings for you in this life are genuine. I asked her in return, do you not blame him? My aunt wiped away her tears, resuming the dignified and solemn demeanor of the Empress Dowager. After witnessing Yingniang's brutal massacre of the palace consorts, my aunt learned the bitter lesson of relinquishing power entirely. Now, the imperial harem was once again a tightly controlled fortress under her command. She gazed meaningfully into my eyes. The emperor's devotion is a good thing. I knew she had her own calculations, so I said no more. Besides, His Majesty had drunk my sweet soup for 3 years, his lifespan remained uncertain. My aunt cautioned me, still shaken, this time, you must not poison yourself. Last time, he nearly didn't survive. Of course, it wasn't poison. That year, the historical records contained only one sentence. In the 10th year of Yingniang, the deposed empress set fire to the Phoenix Hall, and the emperor coughed blood incessantly. When my elder sister came to fetch me, I wept uncontrollably. Her expression faltered, if you truly cannot bear to leave, then go back. To save you, the emperor dragged his sickly body into the flames. Several men nearly failed to restrain him. He cried out your name, his voice choked with anguish, each word like blood. Even I couldn't bear to hear it. I shook my head silently. My sister said, in the end, he coughed up blood. So much blood. I walked quietly behind her. After a long while, my sister sighed softly, her tone tinged with relief. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. His mind is still intact. She spat venomously. Zhao Yu is just sick. You tell me, he loved Yingniang like mad before, yet he didn't hesitate to give her abortion potions. Out of love and guilt, he let Yingniang run wild, caring nothing for others' lives. Then he fell for you, this gentle dagger, and kicked Yingniang so hard she coughed up blood. Yingniang shouldn't have called you cruel when she fell. The real cruel one is Zhao Yu. Let's not talk about such unlucky things. Big sister silently handed me a handkerchief, chattering on, our eldest sister is now a renowned landscape painter. Her paintings are worth a fortune. She painted a whole basketful for you. Let's sell them for money when we get back. Know what second sister's up to? She's been getting scolded to death by Auntie lately. Apparently, instead of studying poetry and classics like she should, she's been delving into business, and honestly, it's been quite profitable. She had someone bring back a bunch of gems from overseas. She wants you to pick some out when you get back. And of course, I'm the most accomplished of all. Your third sister here is now a teacher at Yuelu Academy, properly instructing over a dozen students. Mingzhu, what about you? Is there anything you'd like to do? I sniffled and replied, I'm going to write Peking opera plays. I write them so very well. The story ends here. Thank you all for your company. See you in the next chapter.